Greetings to my Lenormand loving friends. This is a very exciting video for me to make for you. It's kind of the first of the progress that I can share with you of my new book. So my book is wrapped around a deck that I absolutely love. It's a deck that, if you've watched my videos, you've watched me use this deck over and over and over again because I love the classic look to it, the ease of reading, the uncluttered backgrounds. But also there was some things about this deck that my publisher and I had talked to them and said, you know, if you ever make another edition of this deck or have to put into reprint, I would love to participate in making these cards even better. I have some suggestions. And Lynn Arujo, who is my editor, passed this on to Stuart Kaplan, who owns US Games Incorporated, who is the publisher of my book. And Stuart said, you know what, share your ideas with me and I'll review them. And if we ever make the deck, let's talk about this. So I did. I wrote in great depth the reasons why I would change them and what I would change. It was only a certain number of cards. It wasn't the whole deck. And, you know, at Reader Studio, Stuart actually came there to meet me and showed me his prototypes of the images that he created based on my feedback, and he went forward with it. So we were just waiting to reprint the deck before those cards could roll out and bring out this big surprise. So here's the great thing is that the Blue Bird Lenormand that you've seen me use online, I just adore this little deck. If you have it, it's an excellent hard-working deck and it will continue to work hard for you. You'll recognize it by the bouquet card on the back. That's the first edition. So now this is sold out. You cannot get this anymore. And this deck will be replaced with the second edition. And the second edition isn't marked on the deck as second edition, but you can see on the back of the deck it now has one of the woman cards. And did you hear what I just said? One of the woman cards. So there's a lot of little surprises in this and some things that I don't see present in other decks that will make your reading easier. So I'm going to go through this with you today. A little history on this deck. So many of the traditional readers like I am, people have been reading that really want to recommend a good deck to people. One of the first decks that we used it's called the Blue Owl deck. And this is a deck that was bought from European distributors. And what happened is in this resurgence of, or I should say insurgence of Lenormand interest that sparked a couple years back, US Games was having a hard time getting enough of this deck to keep in stock. And this is a wonderful deck because it has a very classic look, very clean images. So it's kind of what you expect to see when you see a Lenormand deck. You've got the child's very simple. You've got your playing card images. Everything is uncluttered and very traditional. It's an easy deck to read. Traditionalists love this deck, and I did too. But they had a hard time keeping up with demand. So what they decided to do is to make kind of a comparable deck that would have that same kind of classic feel to it, that they could use in place of the Blue Owl. The people that would be interested in the Blue Owl would find this new deck interesting. And that's where the Blue Bird came out that we're used to seeing. So you've watched me use this Blue Bird Lenormand many times in my videos, and I am just in love with this deck. The back of it is very simple. You've got your little Blue Bird on the back. But the images are so uncluttered and just amazing. I love the court cards. We have made improvements to those as well. So, and lots of the cards that you'll see. I'm going to go through the deck to show you all the cards that have been adjusted, and I think you'll be as excited as I am by these changes. So the new one is not marked anywhere on this deck as new. The front of the deck is just a slightly different hue of blue. The back of the deck, like I said, has that woman, and I'm going to go through this with you. I want to show you these images and what excites me about the changes in this deck. Okay, so let's go. Let's take a peek at this remarkable deck update. Okay, so what I've done is I've arranged the original Blue Bird Lenormand at the top row and the new second edition one at the bottom. So you can see as you look at the first several cards, cards one is you've got the Cavalier, and as they move on toward the beginning, you'll see that the cards are exactly the same here. That's because I felt that the cards were perfect as they were. When we get to the house card, you'll notice the first change. So the old edition had a house up on a hill. I thought there was, the house wasn't the primary figure. I felt that if we removed things that looked like mountains and trees, it would be a little easier to see right in the middle in a grand tableau. I also was concerned that this would look like a path splitting for the path card. And so what they did is they made it very clear. There is your house, it's the manor, and you've got a nice clear house at the center. So that's the first change. The tree card is the same. What we did is we made an adjustment on the clouds card. So the original one, I was concerned this may look like a mountain, so that was removed. We've got a cloud, and we've got the dark side on the left side, which is the side I prefer to have it on as I read from left to right, and it shows what's clouded is modifying the card before it. You'll notice there's a change in the court cards. There's a reason for that, and I'm going to explain that. I'm very excited about that. This is going to make reading so much easier for people, but I'll save that for in a few minutes. I'll be explaining that. With our snake card, so I thought that was perfect as is. With the coffin card, it had the owl on top in the original version. I was concerned, especially because some of the traditional decks show owls as birds, and I wanted to just remove any confusion that it could be anything but the coffin, and they beautifully removed that, and we have now just a very clear coffin. I liked the flowers as they were, the scythe, because I like as few people as possible in the cards other than the people cards. We now have the scythe as a standalone and very clear on its own. Whip was perfect. I liked the birds. With the child card, it was a concern to me that people may tarotize this deck and say, oh, now this is about children or two children, rather than one or a pair of something. And we already have cards that indicate pairs. So what they did is they gave me several choices of images to choose. I just adored this longing little beautiful face on this child. So that is our new child card. And there's just a single child, a single start, a single young significator, and that is going to be the new child card. Fox is the same as is bear. Stars has an important change. So the original version of the Bluebird had a single star in the sky, and the poem reflected that. However, this is not the same as the tarot star card. It's different. It's about multiples and spreading out and networking. And so it's about multiples. It's a stars card. So the poem has been just slightly modified, and you'll see now there's multiples of stars in the sky, one and several surrounding it, and that's a much more accurate representation of what the card meaning is. Stork is the same here as is dog. Love those. Let's see the next row. Tower was absolutely fine as it was, and garden was as well. I loved the mountain. When we got to the roads card, it was a kind of a straight road going forward, and this is a card about splitting, exits, departures, two of something. It's like making a decision, a choice. So what we did is we adjusted this. Now you come to a point, you have to take a left or a right, make a decision. So now it's a better representation of what this card means, and you'll notice here's another court card change. We'll get into that shortly. The mice was perfect. I loved it. Loved the hearts as well. The ring, because of the hand, you can barely see the ring, so that was adjusted, and Stuart made a couple changes to make it really nice and clear with a beautiful emerald here, and now we have a very clear image of a ring as a primary image. Same with the book, and I love the letter. Now here's one thing, we got the man card is the same as is the woman. We've had some adjustments in that, and here's why. So we have one man and one woman, so we can't do same-sex readings if there's just those two, or if you're reading about two male characters or two female characters. So what we've got now is the new deck has two men and two women, and what they are doing is they are facing in opposite directions, so right and left. She's tilted toward the right, she's tilted toward the left. Should anyone have interest in using directionality, there's more randomness in this of facing toward or facing away. I do not use directionality if they're always facing just the same way, because that means anytime the female's in the future, she'll be looking away from him, and that is not always the case in real life. So I love that we have this option if you want to do that, and so it's there and available for people who do. Again, the lilies was perfect, as I loved the sun. That's pretty close as well. The moon, I felt, got buried here. So the moon is definitely not the primary figure, and there's a tree in the front, which could be mistaken for the tree card. There's clouds, so then there's something that could look like a house down here as well. So there's so much imagery here that the moon kind of gets lost in the shuffle. So they brought it right to the forefront, and there is no question here, that is your moon card. The key card is the same. The fish card has an important change. Before it was a solitary fish, and this is a card about multiples, abundance, much of something, as well as finances. So you'll notice that now you have multiple fish, as in a school of fish. So that, I love that adjustment. And the last two cards are the same, the anchor and the cross. Now let me show you the exciting changes of the court cards and how this will help your readings. Okay, so the way I have these arranged is the top row I have the jacks or the youths of the Dakar family. And in the middle I have the queens, arranged also by the same suits from left to right. And on the bottom I have the kings. I have them arranged left to right for a reason. So the diamonds are, if you read playing cards, you can tell what a person looks like when you get the court cards, and by both age, so as they were arranged here, younger to older, and also by the suit, which dictates the coloring of the person. So if you're reading a spread, say in a grand tableau, and you see clusters of something and someone asks you, well, what does that person look like? Now you don't have to know how to read playing cards. It's all here for you, and it will help you understand what that person may look like. So, and we had to make some decisions because there is some fluctuation or like gradations in each one. But when you look at diamonds, think of that as the lightest. So think of a white, like a diamond ring is like a white color. So, and then we get into the darker hairs, and then we get into browns, and then spades is blacks, or it can also be white-haired elders, kind of like the more advanced. So with the diamonds, what we've done is we made the lighter hair or red hair, which will be the suit. So we can kind of describe the person by that. So we've got those colors here. When we get into the hearts, here's our youth that has sandy brown hair that matches the color of that suit. So, and then we get to the queen, same thing. She's got sandy brown hair. And as we get to our mature king, he also has sandy brown hair. Then we get to the clubs. Now we're getting to the darker shades of brown and brown eyes. And eye color is also taken into account. I talk about this in my book as well, based on suit. So here we have the darker hair and possibly lighter eyes. Darker eyes, whereas we get toward the lighter eyes and the lighter suits. So as we get to the youth, you can see now the hair color is getting darker. And with the queens, she now has a darker brown hair, hard to see, but it's around the back of her hat. There you go. And as we get to the kings here, he has a darker chestnut colored hair. Lastly, as we get to the smaller suits, again with the jacks, we have a youth here who is of very dark hair. And this one is our white hair. Remember, it's very dark hair or mature white on the queen and on the king as well. So if you prefer to have those dark, just get out your Sharpie pen and make these guys dark haired if you want. You can do it either way because it actually means both things. So these are arranged not only from gradient of light to dark, with the lightest color meaning the lightest blondes, platinums, and the yellow blondes, as well as the redheads. And then we get into the more sandy ash colored hair, and then we get into the more chestnut and auburns, and then we get into the darker spades, jet black hair, and also mature white have gone silver. And just for those who are interested in the eyes, it's really hard to see eyes in a court card, especially if we ever were to miniaturize this deck even further. But as you get from the very dark colors, that's where you get your very dark brown eyes, and then you go to brown eyes, and as we get down further, it's like hazel green, possibly blue, and then as you get to the light-haired people, it's more blue or green eyes for those colors. So when you think dark complected, can also be in the spades as well as dark haired. This could be also olive skinned, dark complected, very dark complected, and very, very pale complected or freckled, with this being in between, kind of medium complected. The backs of the card are very similar. So the first edition is on the left and the second edition is on the right. You'll see very similar in style, same familiar bluebird in the middle, just a lot more white markings on the first edition. So you can easily separate the two decks should they become mixed together. And here for me is the ultimate test in performance for a Lenormand deck of cards, is how well can you see the images in a grand tableau. You notice the backgrounds are very uncluttered and clear. The images pop right out to the front. There's no question. You know, my vision is not great. My actual eyesight is not wonderful, so that I need to have these up front. And I have no problem seeing. I can go right through this really fast and tell you heart, stork, ship, woman, path, tree, coffin, and man. It's just so easy and fast to see that now there's no obstruction to me reading these cards quickly, so I can fluently get through a reading fast without trying to figure out what the heck I'm looking at, because these have crystal clear vision. Really, really amazing deck of cards. So you can see how excited I am about these changes that have been made to this deck. Now, if you have the first edition version of this little deck, you can still do your readings with it. Don't want you to feel pressure that, you know, this is the one you have to have the right readings. Just understand, if you get a card like this child card and it has the 2 children in it, not the one, just understand, stick to the original language that it is a child. And other things like the fish, if you see multiples, or the star, it should be multiples. Just understand the true meanings of the cards, and you can still do it. I was doing readings with those cards and getting great, fabulous results. But if you really feel like it helps you to have these versions that represent the actual semantics and grammar of the system, that will be helpful to you, as well as those court cards. And I like this deck actually so much that this is the deck that you will see imaged throughout my book. So when my book is published, all the images from this deck will be the ones that you see as graphics to teach you how to do spreads. All the grand tableaus, all the small spreads, the 3 spreads, the 5 spreads, everything that's in there is going to have these remarkable images. I am that passionate about this deck. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. It's now the only version of this deck that you can purchase because it's replacing the other one. This is a preview version of this, but you will be able to purchase this very, very shortly. It is now, from what I heard, in stock at US Games and will be ready to ship out to you. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. I hope you enjoy the ease of those court cards in reading people in your spreads. And I hope you enjoy the changes that we made and the ones that we kept, because they were perfect as they were. Love the Blue Bird. Hope you did too. I also want to send huge thanks just to the people at US Games for all the changes that they made. Just because someone came to them and said, look, I think we can even make this better, because they already had a good product. But it really shows that they have concern in making sure that they have the best products that are out there. They have been remarkable to work with, very kind, very focused on their work, and I'm very, very excited to be associated with them. So thanks, US Games, thanks, Stuart, thanks, Lynn, thanks to all those who are working on the images of this deck in my book, and I think everybody will benefit from this. Thanks so much.